Okay, so we've got a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Kelly here. Kelly, you're the CEO of Denny's, which is an incredible chain of restaurants that's family friendly, it's fun, and there's a lot of good you guys have done through the restaurant chain that I'm going to get into as well. So it's been, a staple of the American food culture for a long time, and been an innovator in what's on the menu. And you have a lot of great experiences before this. You led Red Lobster, you were the first female president of Chili's, so you've been an innovator in this category for a long time, and I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
I'm excited to be here, Ben. Thank you.
Awesome. So, first of all, just how did you get interested in the restaurant business? Were you around the restaurant business when you were younger? What made you want to spend your life in this space?
Yeah, and so I absolutely kind of found this love and this passion in restaurants at a very early age, 16. This is a fascinating industry because my story is not dissimilar to so many others. So many people kind of get into it, it gets into your blood. You kind of find your passion and where it meets kind of the world needs something from you. And for me, that was exactly what happened. I fell in love with it. 16, did never have done anything else. One short stint summer retail didn't go well because I was so anxious of I wanted to take care of guests. I love the buzz and the hum that happens in a restaurant. I could make great money, incredibly flexible, so I could go to school and work on the weekends and at night. And even when I went on and moved away, an hour and a half away for college, I still could pick up those shifts, right? So that's therein lies kind of what people both kind of love about it and where you can really progress. I was given a lot of feedback early on and offered a chance to move up pretty quickly in different positions with the company I was working for. So it's been in my blood, as everyone likes to say. For me, it's just been a profoundly amazing experience. I often say some of the things I learned in that first job are things I still carry with me and talk about to this day, which is I think in simple terms, people come to restaurants for more than just a meal. They come a lot of times to be seen and connect. And that's where kind of doing some of the good work, for me comes in because I think it can be really a lot bigger than just sustenance at times, right?
So how did you learn that? Like, what made you have that thinking?
So, I think I learned it early on, and then
Mhm.
it's been confirmed and reconfirmed for me my entire career. And when I say I learned it early on, I still remember the people that came and sat at the counter, those regulars, some by themselves. Sometimes it was couples and it was their way of connecting, and they'd come in and have a cup of coffee. My mom would come in and sit at the counter, and that was part of her day, right? So I started to note that and still can see the faces and remember the names to this day. I also found a community and, if you will, a family. So my family, things were my parents had just gotten divorced, and it became a place where I felt seen myself, and that goes back to kind of seeing it there and reflecting on it now. It's been proven to me time and time again that you really do create some amazing bonds. The restaurant industry is a beautiful, fabulous industry, but it's taxing. It's,
Mhm.
through COVID, we learned this was the front line. Those that were running a restaurant, they were there, they put things at risk, right? And it changed pretty dramatically. But I was asked at the time in an interview similar to this when COVID was happening, what do you think happens to restaurants? And I said, it may feel and look a little bit different, but restaurants serve a place that's much bigger than food. So restaurants and sitting around a table connecting will never go away, in my opinion. So
Mhm.
yeah,
I
I think
agree.
I loved it, and people gave me opportunity. They gave me feedback, but they gave me opportunity. They even helped me to fill out my financial aid form so I could go to college. Literally, my managers. So yeah, so it had a massive impact on me.
Mhm. So how did you kind of rise to leadership positions? Like you can get into a restaurant, there's lots of entry level jobs in restaurants. It's
Yeah.
accessible. It's famous of how many people have worked at McDonald's and become
Yep.
successful later on.
Okay.
That was their first job. But how did you kind of go and rise it to more managerial roles? Like what did you have to prove to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question because they what I got really early on in that first job, because I was a general manager by the time I was 21. And so I
Wow.
went from that TJ's Big Boy to another this was in upstate New York, so kind of a small town, but I went to another restaurant group, and they were owned, kind of a family owned and operated company, and it was them that just said, "We can also make you this. You can also be a general manager." So I think just scrappy and grit and being resilient and and just saying yes. And I think, that was my operations career. When I finished my MBA and then went to apply and lean into something outside of strictly being in the restaurants, operating restaurants. When I moved into HR after getting my graduate degree. And I would say there, how do you get different leadership positions? I raised my hand a lot. I raised my hand if it wasn't something that was in HR that needed to be solved. I just would say, I could think I can lend my voice to this, right? And I think I felt safe enough to do that with, the company I was with at that time, and just, moved up the ranks. I say I had a very windy path because it was early ops, then a lot of years in human resources, and then back into ops, later becoming the president of Chile. So
Mm.
biggest, proudest, moments where we're doing some of that great work.
Well, what was Chili's like when you got involved with it? What did it look like as a brand? And how different was it when you left?
Oh, totally different. When I joined, it was the company had nine. I was 24-ish. The company had
Mm.
nine different restaurant concepts under the portfolio. It was known as Brinker International was known as the Mutual Fund of Casual Dining back then, and so multiple concepts, incubating new ideas and new concepts quite a bit at that time. And I was hired in HR to work for the On the Border brand, or work on that On the Border brand, and cut my teeth there. Moved around into lots of different positions in HR for many years, for close to 12 years, 12 plus years, before being offered the position to be senior vice president of HR at Chili's. So I came in as the head of HR for Chili's for that brand, and then moved up from there. So it was very different. When I left 22 years later, it's amazing. I was 24, so half of my life at that point when I left was spent with Brinker International. The most amazing leaders, from Norman Brinker to Doug Brooks, the CEO, just people giving me the opportunity I couldn't have imagined. And so by the time I left, it was two brands, and that's what it is today. Chili's, flagship brand, doing incredibly well, and so proud of everything that they're doing and all the good that they put out into the world. And then Maggiano's, which is the upscale Italian brand, doing well also under Brinker.
Mm. Was it different for you being like the first female president of the brand, and that was kind of a new thing in the restaurant space? Did you feel like you had more challenges or stuff you had to prove differently, or did you just feel like you were another leader?
I honestly, I think when you're in the right place,
Mm.
and it felt right, and I never felt like because I was a female I got it or didn't get it, or it was I was so thrilled to have that opportunity. Absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity. And when they promoted me, they said, look, we know, and here's the gift in this. They said, and it was Doug Brooks, the CEO at the time, and he said, we know you know how to lead, we know you understand people, um, and that's what it's all about. So now
Mm.
you just need to learn the P&L, and you can be. It was from the HR role to chief operating officer. So they said now you just need to master the P&L, and you can do that, and we'll help you do that. So what a gift to
Mm.
say it's about people. People. You are in HR, because that's still a pretty non-traditional route to moving to
Mm.
president. You see marketing, sometimes you see finance. You don't always see HR, although it's getting a bit more common, which I love. So I never felt any difference, even though it is still a very male dominated industry. I will tell you, the one time that I felt like I needed to do more as a female COO at that time was when others came to me and said, all right, you got to help other women understand that they too could have a path similar to yours. And so I created and spearheaded a workshop, a series of leadership talks, really focused on helping other women kind of unpack their own beliefs and what it would take for them to move forward. So that was kind of where I saw my role in being a little bit different. And it took somebody else telling me, you got to now think about how you kind of pull people along with you. So
Hmm. Yeah, well, it's good that you got the opportunity, to do that, and that you
mhm,
took advantage of it.
mhm.
Especially from HR. Like you're right, that rarely ever happens. I feel like I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's rare. It is rare.
Super rare.
Yeah.
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 So then, I mean, you had this kind of interesting like transition where you're like, you kind of went the tech route. You went to this like different avenue. What was the
Yeah.
reasoning for that?
I've been with Brinker for 22 years, loved every bit of it.
Hmm.
And got the opportunity to become the CEO of this technology company. Black Box Intelligence was uniquely tied to the restaurant space. All of the clients at Black Box Intelligence are restaurant CEOs or restaurant
Hmm.
teams. And so I saw it as a way to get more exposure outside of Brinker. Really one of the toughest decisions I had ever made. But I'd been there so long, and my boss wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't imminent that he might make a change. And I had been learning a ton, but really was ready to kind of think about something different at that point. So for me, it was a chance to get exposure. Again, being that all my clients were restaurant industry clients, it was a way to just kind of spread my wings a little bit. They obviously offered me a CEO job that wasn't imminent for me at that time at Brinker. It was a few years out, and it was a chance just to do that and lead a team and do something completely different. It was amazing because as history now goes, I joined, and a couple months later, we were shut down in COVID.
Mhm.
Um, and so joining and being a part of a technology company during COVID, I had, I think, like survivor guilt, thinking I should be running an operating brand. I should be running a restaurant. I should be serving food, in to-go windows at this point, because I could feel and knew everything that was going on in the industry. I was also tracking, because Black Box Intelligence is a company that still tracks guest sentiment, financial metrics, and workforce metrics for their clients. So it's a benchmarking subscription.
Mhm.
And I was able then to say, all right, what do my clients need from me now more than ever in COVID? And it was the idea of what's on the other side. And I started to do webinars and board presentations to help CEOs understand what the guest was saying, right? To mask or not to mask. I mean, there was all that kind of debate that may sound like it was a long time ago. It was what I was, I think, supposed to do then. It's just to lean in and try and help the industry in a broader sense, understand what could be on the other side. And of course, we're on the other side finally.
Yeah, that was a quite a challenging time. And being part of a tech company, I think there was a benefit. I mean, especially you learned how to be really agile, you know.
Yes. Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what drew you to Denny's? Why Denny's?
Mm-hmm. So to me, for every assignment, I always think about, going with the grain and what is the culture? What are the values of the organization? What is the culture? How does the culture speak to me? Because you can come in, so all three assignments as a CEO, and you just mentioned Black Box and then Red Lobster, they've all been me coming from the outside
Mhm.
as a CEO. I didn't, Brinker was my promoted from within and that crazy, awesome spirally path. This was come in from the outside as a CEO. And I take it just as seriously as if I was coming in as a director or in a different position. What are the values? Do they align with mine? Can I make a difference here? Or will I be pushing a rock uphill in terms of a culture that maybe I don't recognize, or what do they stand for? And so for me, what drew me to Denny's, I knew the success. I knew my predecessor very well. So I knew the team. They were clients of mine at Black Box. So I knew the team really well also, got to know the team. And, just looking at the website, we say it proudly, we love to feed people body, mind, and soul. And so
Mhm.
when I think of purpose statements, they've got to be authentic. So I pressure checked and tested that in the very beginning. What does this mean? Where did it come from? And the idea of loving to feed people actually came from in 1953, Harold Butler, who started the first, it was at Danny's Donuts. And when they asked him, why did you start a 24/7 brand? That's hard. That seems hard. What was the thinking? What was the purpose, right? What was your purpose? And he said, I just love to feed people. And 24/7 didn't scare me. I thought it was a way to be feeding people around the clock. And that was my purpose. That was my mission. And so it's authentic. And I
Mhm.
learned that through the interview process at poking at it. Is this just words on paper? Body, mind, and soul came later. But I can give you an example of every instance in my 3.5 years now where we have shown our love for feeding people in all ways, body, mind, and soul, including mental health awareness and things that we've done as a brand to nourish the mind. The soul gets fed when we go out and we take our mobile relief diner out to places like Kerrville, Texas, after the floods and after 108 people lost their lives and children lost their lives. When we go to those communities and show up and put our arms out to those communities, that's we're feeding, yes, the body, but we're also feeding the soul and saying, we see you at Denny's and we're here to help. So I'm incredibly proud of the giving back and the work that we do, and believe you have
Mhm.
to be doing well, you have to be doing good. And that
Yeah.
was what drew me to Denny's. Not to mention, I think in my career, if you look at the brands, I think I have this uh, secret, maybe not so secret affinity for mature brands that are iconic, that are Americana, and
Mhm.
and that are still full of so much potential, even though they're Denny's is 72 years young. So I'm always attracted to the stories. Who doesn't have a story about Denny's? right? Or if you think about Chili's for that matter, or Red Lobster. And so I think that's been my somehow a hallmark of my career is kind of turnarounds,
Hmm.
but coming in to dust it off and look at what is really good and already there and build on it.
Hmm. How does the 24-hour business model work successfully? Is there really enough demand throughout, some of these hours at night that it justifies that?
It's funny. It's a great question, Ben, because it did change in COVID, right? It did.
Hmm.
People's travel patterns changed, and in some ways, we're still not exactly, there. We had 95% of our locations, and we've said this a million times on our own earnings calls. And so we had 95 before the pandemic, with 5% of the locations maybe not being open, 24/7 for various reasons. And it's now 75%. So when I came in, my question was, is there still demand? Can these franchise, we're basically 97% franchise. Can our franchisees be making money? And if not, how do we help them? And how are we still a predominantly 24/7 brand? And we still predominantly are, still serving people well and serving, being where they want us to. I don't know if you're hearing that, Ben. Are you hearing that?
Yeah, I was just hearing it. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, there's nobody at my house. Very
Yeah.
weird.
You want to just say the last
Um,
part again?
Sure. Uh, so we're still predominantly a 24/7 brand, and we're there when the communities need us, we're still there. And we know that that's an equity that's really important to our consumer, but we had to make it right. We did a whole bunch of analysis, profitability, traffic, everything side by side with our franchisees to get to the number we're at today. We are still probably in family dining. We're we're the most open out of any other full service brands, right? Because all the brands went through evaluating that after the pandemic. Should this change now for us? And we kept it wholly the same, but we made some adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, the family branding aspect, I think, is what's really set you guys apart for so long. How do you think
Mm-hmm.
about like continuing that with the social media, of today and like how brands are now getting customers through TikTok and Instagram is
Sure.
I mean, are there just techniques you guys have around like family oriented content that gets people excited about Denny's?
Look, I think like if you look what we're advertising today through the holidays, what we're advertising is Everyday Value Slam and Super Slam, and we've got a Rudolph Slam. So right now we've got a collaboration literally with Rudolph. And as you're watching, like Rudolph was just on the other night, and to kick off the holiday season, our commercial has also been tied to that tradition for so many families, and that leans into kids. It leans into everything we are about in terms of creating great value at a time when our customers need us the most, which right now they all need great value. And so that's one way. Kids eat free 4 to 8 p.m. Is also something we've been advertising as of late. So and then I
That's
think, yeah,
huge.
yeah, it's huge. And you get into, the movie Good Fortune came out not too long ago. Keanu Reeves in that movie, Seth Rogen, and there were a lot of integrations we did with that. So we'll look for the moments in time. Grand Slam over the summer when the World Series happened. We said if in the seventh inning this happens, if there is a Grand Slam, this is how we'll handle it. And we did pay out lots of free Grand Slams after that. So you look for those zeitgeist moments, you look for the cultural moments where people expect Denny's to show up. And that's, I think, the best way to leverage social and, all the influencers that are out there. So we're always trying to still figure it out and kind of step it up even further.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that love the Denny's brand, Kelly, that I'm sure you can just continuously go after. They'll come to you to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, we want to be a part of this in the next phase of it."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lots of huge fans. That's the beauty of this great iconic brand.
Yeah, definitely. So what is most of your time spent on right now? Like you mentioned, like how you're trying to help franchise partners and the next phase of that. But what does
Mm-hmm.
like the day to day look like currently?
Yeah, it's a little different as of late. So let me just kind of broadly tell you, and then we just announced we are going private. So we're moving away from
Hmm.
being a publicly held company and just announced an acquisition. So my days are spent a little differently now, managing through what will now be a transaction close right after the beginning of the year, or as soon as the new year starts. So a little bit different. Been working on that for quite some time, but you hit it on, like you said it. My job and the where I spend my time is with our teams, thinking about how we create profitable traffic and programs that help our franchisees with profitability, because nothing really matters unless the franchisees are winning. If they don't win, we don't win. If if we as the franchisor aren't winning, it becomes really hard for us to create programs that enable, really good things for the franchisees. So my days are spent looking at menu items with our president, our brand president, thinking about the next value offer or how we really create great everyday value for our customers, leaning into what our customers need and really understanding what the guest wants from us today. But just literally staying close to those franchisees every day on things that are most important in managing the calendar. They are franchisees for a reason. They pay us to collaborate with them and really come up with great things in the pipeline of innovation, food, social media, PR, otherwise.
Kelly, what are you most excited about when it comes to the go private move? It's like when then you get a lot more control, a lot less
Yeah.
people talking about you that you are
Yeah.
affecting, stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what I get most excited about, my job as a public company CEO is always to create the greatest shareholder wealth, shareholder value. And in this case, with where we were as a public company, and coming out of COVID and things did change, we were making some really tough calls. I get most excited now about the chance to continue to invest in the brands without necessarily the quarterly recap of it, that at times, you need just a bit longer to really create some value or to be testing something that we know will really could really change the game for us or be a big improvement, but it takes longer than a quarter. So at times this will allow us to be able to make those investments, and the partner we have, the new owners that we have, are in lockstep with us on these are the things that will really help us to create the massive turnaround and stabilization that we've been needing. And you do that without the quarterly, anchor, if you will.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, the food business in America, restaurant business, has seen a massive shift recently.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yes.
a lot of brands have lowered prices. There are some that have kind of figured out staying higher, but it seems like it's a trend of just going lower right now. There's just a lot of that. It's hard to
It
compete.
There's a ton of it, and it's not as bad as it was even 6 months ago. We were like, "Holy cow!" It is just the lowest. It's the lowest price. It's the lowest bundle. We are still in search of what we like to say our everyday value. What's our version of everyday value that lives on the menu year round, and maybe bring innovation to that menu from time to time. But the value proposition is a simple equation. It's everything I get for what I pay for. And so you take everything that you know about the brand even before you go in and have a meal is factored into the numerator, right? What do I get for being in this restaurant today? And so price is a factor, but it's also how emotionally attached do I feel, about the brand? How is the brand? What's the brand reputation? It's everything. So for us, trying to find the right price point and the right everyday value that we can sustain over time factors into that equation and just makes the guest feel like, yes, you do see me at Denny's, right? Yes, you see that this is something I'm seeking from you. Like Kids Eat Free, right? We need to be there for these families right now. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. It is what you've got to keep doing. And you have to know who your guest is. And I know who my guests are, and our teams know who we're solving for. And they're a group that absolutely does, need to see the value from us and know that we get it, meet them where they are.
So just the last question I have, like, what is your long-term vision for the company right now? And just like the goals you have, like if you could list some of the goals.
Sure. Yeah. Look, the goals are to drive even greater, to drive traffic, drive profitable traffic. The goal is happy franchisees, continuing to collaborate with them. And in 3 to 5 years, for this to be a brand that is growing exponentially in the international space. There's a whole world out there. We're in 17 countries and two U.S. territories today, but there's more room. There's more room for growth for Denny's. We've spent the last couple of years really kind of culling and working on the bottom to strengthen the portfolio. This now, and again, with our new ownership, is a chance to really lean in and create the kind of revitalization strategy that shows you, yes, Denny's is not only here for you, but Denny's is growing and going to pop up in even more places. So it's a growth. It's really about growth. And it's about having more locations in the U.S., more locations internationally, and bringing this iconic brand to more guests more often. Look, the strategy beyond that, we've got a new loyalty program. We've wrapped our arms around our guests to say, again, we see you, we hear you. We're doing more in social and PR as of late, but it's really to create in the mind of all of our consumers new, those that have been with us and our tried and true regulars, to newer, younger guests, to just know Denny's can be there for you, and you're going to see exciting growth from us in the future.
It's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think the brand has so much more potential, and it's exciting
Mm.
that you believe how much you believe in it, and
Yeah.
go private's going to help with that for sure. But
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, the way that you guys cater towards families is very unique,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of families out there that need Denny's.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And they need us. So yeah, it's an exciting
Yeah.
time at Denny's for sure.